Hello everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and today we're going to be doing some silver stacking discussion, talking about the best amount of silver per bar that you should be kind of purchasing and going after. What's the right range? Is that going to be something like we have over here, the smaller range where it's like 1 ounce, maybe it's 2 ounce, 5 ounce. I should have a 10 ounce and we'll get into more on that, but maybe it's also kind of a bigger bar like a kilo or even 10 pounds, 10 kilos, something huge. But anyways, we'll go through all of that. I'll share my thoughts. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter stacking video, but we'll talk about it in just a moment. And we'll get right into it. I think I'll go kind of from the left to the right. We want to think about why silver bars are good to begin with, what their best utility sort of is, and then how these different sizes can play into them. And the other thing is that definitely leave your comments below and a little bit behind what you think is the best type, because it's certainly not a totally solved question, though I do think the points that I'll raise will, I've thought about them a little bit, and we'll start kind of on the left here. And over here we have this 25 grams, so not quite an ounce, poured silver from that Jaeger's precious metal or poured silver. Here's a star. That one looks like it's going to be half of an ounce, 0.5. And then we'll get over here. We've got 1 ounce bars. But before we do that, I think over here, I would say to avoid something like this. I think that they're really cool pieces of art. They got the skull, I guess, over here is just sort of a star. They're kind of fun. They're chunky pieces of silver. But the thing is, they're not that recognizable. And I think a lot of the advantages with bars, I've made a video on it in the past, but the good thing with them is that you can get a fair amount for a low price, and these are probably going to have some premiums in them where it just makes them a little bit tougher to trade. People generally aren't looking to get into silver bars, and to be fair, these really aren't bars, but I have seen some pretty small ones, and it doesn't really leverage the good parts of the silver bar. What makes a silver bar attractive? I always think the main thing is getting low premiums, and maybe there's some reasons where the 1 ounce would be good or the 2 ounce, but you get low premiums and you can get a fair amount of silver at a better cost. Now, when we move over to the 1 ounce, that's a more commonly accepted denomination. People don't really think about, what's the price of 25 grams of silver? Half ounce, maybe a little bit, but people don't really collect a bunch of stars either. Something like this, you're getting exactly 1 ounce of 999 or more, in this case, fine silver, and people generally kind of like that. 1 ounce is really how it's traded. You think of what's the spot price of silver, it's in ounces. Things like copper, it's pounds. Nobody talks about the price of copper in an ounce, though we'll see what that looks like in 20 years or so. But the point is, 1 ounce is a much more recognizable thing with how copper is traded. So having some of these ounces, you're able to get maybe a wide variety of art, which can be fun about bars. And you're probably not paying super high premiums, though my guess is on a 1 ounce order, it's probably a little bit more than as you kind of creep to the right side of the screen here. Same thing with 2 ounce. 2 ounces maybe even a little bit less recognizable, and it's not an obvious multiple. Or here, 2.1 certainly does not pass the test, but say it's $30 an ounce, you have 2 ounces, it's going to be $60. It's easy to calculate. It's a little bit more sizable of a silver investment, and I find a lot of the 2 ounce, like you're seeing here, but in terms of what I've seen elsewhere, the 2 ounce stuff generally is not as, especially I think this OPM metals, this was just a good deal that came through the shop the other day, and I picked it up. But with his OPM metals, it's very well, it looks pretty official. A lot of the 2 ounce stuff, I'm not saying it's not official, but it kind of gets into that poured art category, like we have here. The fine mint, it's like, it's a chunky piece of silver, and there's a little bit of that fun aspect. Then we get into the 5 ounce, and I kind of like this range, 5 ounces. It's a little bit larger silver. That's a definite advantage, as if you want a big piece of silver, and certainly as we get more over, but you can get these nice, you can really start to see some of the, on this one, you can see the pour lines. Man, I'm totally blanking out on what you would call those, but you see the ripple. Man, I feel a little stupid that I'm not remembering. But anyways, yeah, it's a poured art bar, and you can see how it's solidified with the lines. And I'm gonna have to edit that in. But there for port art, it's a little bit of a larger quantity. You can also just get some, very low premium. I find that dealers are generally willing to sell this at some of the lowest premiums possible. And there's a lot of producers for them. They're generally not as, they're not super sold out. I often think that you can find the really good price on what physical silver is selling for by looking at what 5 and 10 ounce silver bars are being bought and sold for at the main precious metals dealerships, because when you think about it, if somebody's shipping 1 ounce of silver, the shipping cost in that is actually going to be significant when you get to a 5 ounce piece or a 5 ounce bar, really not having those problems as much. Same thing with a 10 ounce. And I really like the idea of 10 ounce silver bars. This was what kind of came through the shop, so this is what I'm talking about and have in my hands. But 5 and 10 ounce, especially because with 10 ounce you just add a 0 to the end of the spot price and you can quickly compare how good of a deal it is. Though when you get up into 5 and 10 ounces, you're probably spending a somewhat significant amount when you purchase it. So that's like the slight drawback where, if you have a 1 ounce, if you buy $1,000 of silver and say the silver price is relatively similar to where it is, so it hasn't skyrocketed, you can shave like $30 here, $60 there, $300 if you ever want to rearrange your silver holdings. With something like this, if you only own like 3 or 4 5 ounce silver bars or 2 10 ounce, you're really going to have a tougher time getting in and out and having a very specific price. And that's one of the main drawbacks with the bars, but the premiums are probably going to be lowest on the 5 and 10 ounce. And then you can get 100 or 1,000 ounce bars. The kilo, it's 1,000 grams. I'm trying to think in my head what the exact, and I'm not sure that it's probably something like 33, 34 ounces of silver in this. The kilo is cool. Maybe in Europe, maybe that's a little more common, or places where they're not on the U.S. system. But the bars like these, you can generally also get quite low premiums. I think that there's also, maybe it appeals to people who just want to make huge investments in silver. But, if you buy this, that might be the only silver that you're owning. And then, you have to make a big bet on silver and then get out in a big way and a big kind of movement to sell. So I think that this 1 kilo, especially for most people, including myself, is not the ideal amount to own. Obviously, it's fun to feel like you have a very, relatively heavy investment in one of these things, but I kind of like the 5 to 10 ounce, because I think if you're going for the 1 ounce, maybe you're just getting it at a really good price, but I would probably recommend something like 90% silver, just because it's super easy to get in and out of it. You can really know exactly how much you have, and they're a little bit more recognizable. But that pretty much brings us to the conclusion of this. And then obviously if we go for like a 1,000 ounce, that's a whole different deal. And that's not something that I've had to think about because I don't have that much money to put into silver. So maybe I'm not the best advice there, but if you have that much, I would still definitely recommend going for either 10 ounces or maybe 100 ounce, and then a mix of 100 ounce, 10 ounce, and then other silver type investments. But in conclusion, I would say 5 to 10 is the best, and then a runner-up would be 1, and then anything kind of in between is fine depending on your personal needs. But I would also avoid things below 1 ounce, despite me owning a little bit of it. It's kind of fun, but it's just a little bit too small where I think it doesn't take advantage of what you can get out of a silver bar. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and definitely subscribe to the channel and connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I also have a website, treasuretownYT.com, where you should go so that you can learn more about coins as well as what's happening on the channel and possibly find a place to sell your coins and collectibles. I also want to talk about some of my other projects like coinmeltprice.com, which shows precious metals prices as well as the melt values of coins containing those precious metals, both US and world. I also have coinsmetalscards.com, which will develop into a full marketplace as well as a news source for coins, metals, cards, as the name might suggest. And then treasuretowncoins.com, which long-term will be my coin dealing entity separate from the channel. And lastly, whatsthegrade.com, which will be a stickering service for already certified collectibles where you can get a approval or verification of the grade on the holder. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you on some of my other videos.